Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So fun story, I filmed this, the audio got all the way fucked up, so you're gonna have to deal with a voiceover, which I'm sure is disappointing to many of you. So I came across this story on Twitter, and I wanted to talk about it because it sounds like a fucked up and depressing movie, so here we are. American fugitive Nicholas Rossi, who faked his own death and fled to the UK to avoid rape charges, steams his glass up with rage as he tells Dateline he can't walk while insisting he's a Brit called Arthur Knight. At first I thought this sounded like it was going to be funny because someone pretending to be someone else and leaving the country and trying to get away with something that is so obviously unrealistic is a lot. However, obviously when we get to the rape charges it turns serious, though I still do think it is absolutely ridiculous how this man tried to get away with it. A Rhode Island fugitive who faked his own death and fled to Scotland steamed his glass up with rage while angrily insisting he is a British man called Arthur Knight. Nicholas Alarverdian, I don't know how to pronounce it, aka Nicholas Rossi, 35, also theatrically tried standing to prove that he was unable to walk during a Dateline interview with Andrea Canning. "I'm not Nicholas Alarverdian. I do not know how to make this clear," he told NBC in a bizarre accent muffled by an oxygen mask over his mouth and nose. Rossi was interviewed in April 2022, 7 months before a ruling in which a Scottish judge rubbished his claims and confirmed he is in fact the US-born fugitive. He is currently being held in a Scotland jail as he awaits extradition proceedings. On Thursday, Laverdian failed to appear for a hearing in Edinburgh after an altercation, a court was told. He was seen leaving Edinburgh Sheriff's Court in a wheelchair and the extradition hearing postponed until a later date. The US now seeks to extradite him to face a number of sexual assault charges, amid them an accusation he raped a 21-year-old woman in Utah in 2008. They say he faked his death in 2017 and fled to Scotland. Now, I have a lot of questions here. I don't even know where to start, but let's just say this. He was accused of raping a woman in 2008. He faked his death almost 10 years later. I have questions just because of that timing, because if he were that concerned about the accusation, wouldn't he have done something earlier? You're not going to wait 9 years to do something about it, to fake your own death. I can understand it would take time to organize that. I wouldn't even know how to go about organizing my own fake death, but regardless, how are you going to wait 9 years to do that in order to escape the law? Also, I have to say, the fact that kind of nothing happened as far as we know for 10 years, how does that work out also? As far as we can gather from the police's end, because how is the police going to take 9 years to do anything about it? They don't give that much detail so far here about what exactly happened, and to be fully transparent, this is the Daily Mail. There weren't that many other articles that were out there. You guys know I don't turn to the Daily Mail unless I have to. Arthur Knight was first flagged as Nicholas Rossi thanks to arm tattoos described in an Interpol alert. They were flagged to police after he was admitted to the hospital in Glasgow during October 2021, suffering from COVID. Rossi subsequently refused to provide fingerprint or DNA samples, but he was eventually fingerprinted in July 2022 after he was arrested for threatening hospital staff. Prosecutors said the prints matched those of Rossi, and a judge ruled that Knight was indeed Rossi in November 2022. During the interview with Dateline, Rossi seemed determined to continue with the deception and grew so irate he was unable to see out of his small, round-framed glasses. Rossi appeared beside his British wife, Miranda Knight, and told Dateline, "We were once a normal family, but thanks to the media, our lives have been interrupted." Speaking in what sounded like an English accent, he continued, "And we'd like privacy, and I would like to go back to being a normal husband, but I can't because I can't breathe, I can't walk." Okay, so I'm confused, just generally I'm confused. So he keeps bringing up not being able to breathe or walk as if it's directly related to what's happening, and as far as I know, that has not been shown. So I don't understand what he was going for there, unless he's going to try and say that getting COVID, which I assume is what's related to the breathing, was due to what happened, because he's blaming the media. All of this was his own doing from my own understanding, and also running away from assault accusations is not the solution, so if he feels this poorly, I don't really know how it can fully be blamed on the media, also because as far as I've seen, and I'm usually pretty in the loop with a lot of these things, this has not come up at all. I don't know if the media has been following him or pestering him, but it seems unrealistic to me to blame the media in this situation. I also don't understand how he's going to try and keep up the facade of being someone else when they literally identified his tattoos. Like, what? In a desperate attempt to then prove he is unable to walk, Rossi tried to stand up before dramatically falling back into his chair as his wife stabilized him. Exactly, he told the interviewer. When asked if he's putting on a show, he said, "That is a low blow, that is a very low blow." Rossi was first arrested in October 2021 after checking himself into the hospital in Glasgow with a serious COVID infection. That is the condition he claims now necessitates his use of an oxygen tank. Medical staff and police were able to identify him by comparing his tattoos with pictures of Rossi on an Interpol red notice. It's funny that he says it's a low blow when he's asked if he was putting on a show, but he doesn't say no. I mean, obviously anyone would be upset with that question, especially if it's true that you are putting on a show. But regardless, wouldn't you like to clarify why you're not putting on a show and why your situation is legitimate? And yet, here we are. I really don't know what this sad little man is going for, but it's not working in his favor. I don't believe this man for a second, and I don't know enough about the assault to say anything about that, but truly, all of this is beyond bizarre. A stream of preliminary hearings then took place, which saw Rossi sack at least 6 lawyers and claim to have been tortured in prison. The hearings culminated in an extraordinary identification case where he insisted his fingerprints had been meddled with and that he had been tattooed while unconscious in hospital in order to resemble Rossi. He was then charged with acting aggressively towards a consultant and senior nurse at Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. Rossi reportedly told US media in December 2019 that he had late-stage non-Hodgkin lymphoma and had weeks to live. An obituary dedicated to him appeared online, and several outlets reported that he had died in February 2020. After his arrest, U.S. authorities issued additional extradition requests, one related to another allegation of rape and another to an allegation of sexual assault. Advocate Deputy Paul Harvey said at the time, "As a result of the extradition process, I'm told that 2 other women in Utah have come forward with allegations of sexual offenses." On Friday, October 28th, the U.S. Embassy in London issued a diplomatic notice for supplementary extradition requests requesting the extradition of the person. This morning, Scottish ministers certified the extradition request, and copies of both extradition requests and the Scottish minister's certification were served on the requested person by a police constable at the court this morning. He said one relates to an allegation of rape in Salt Lake City and another to an allegation of sexual assault elsewhere. So this goes back to what I said before. This man seems to have a pattern, and it would make sense because, like I said, if he was accused of assaulting someone in 2008, it was, I believe, and then he basically does nothing, and 10 years later tries to disappear and act like he's dead, the only thing that comes to mind for me is that he's pulled other things that are catching up to him. Does that make sense? Unless he got some kind of information that led him to believe that the assault he'd committed, the first one we're aware of, if that were coming to light, it would make sense to try and go MIA, I guess, but I feel like it's more likely that he committed other assaults and he was worried that those were going to come to light, and that's why he was like, okay, it's time for me to disappear. Rossi, who arrived at court for the October 2022 date with his wife Miranda Knight, is already fighting an extradition request by authorities in Utah who allege he raped a 21-year-old in the state. He was arrested on December 13th last year after being admitted to the Queen University Hospital, blah blah, we know, for the COVID treatment. He was traced following a tip-off from Interpol while he was on a ventilator in intensive care. Rossi told U.S. media in December 2019 that he had late-stage non-Hodgkin lymphoma and had weeks to live before several outlets reported that he had died in February 2020 with a gushing obituary published online about him. He's also said to have attacked women in the states of Rhode Island, Ohio, and Massachusetts. However, when he was arrested in Scotland, neighbors claimed he had told them he was a British professor who said he was working at the nearby University of Glasgow. Described as an eccentric, the alleged academic was often seen sporting large hats, dapper bow ties, and spoke with a cut-glass English accent. It was also claimed he enjoyed visiting bars wearing suits where he would sip on whiskey and go on political rants about Brexit, with one neighbor telling The Times, for someone who was on the run, he really liked to draw attention to himself. Alaverdian furiously denies he is the American wanted by the FBI and insists he has been mistakenly identified by the authorities. Police and hospital staff initially identified the man as being Rossi from tattoos on his body. Photographs obtained by officers showed that he had tattoos on his arms. Several media outlets reported in 2020 that Alaverdian had died on February 29, 2020. They cited the website everloved.com, which says his body was cremated and his ashes scattered at sea. An online obituary dedicated to him read, "Nicholas Alaverdian's battle for life ended on February 29, 2020. The children and families in the care of the Rhode Island Department of Children, Youth, and Families, for whom he inspired and led through turbulent government transgressions, have lost a warrior that fought on the front lines for 2 decades. He's also suspected of carrying out multiple other sex attacks and was also accused of a $200,000 fraud after taking out credit cards and loans in his foster mother's husband's name in Ohio, it is alleged. Rossi divorced his second wife in 2017 after less than 2 years of marriage and is also said to owe her $52,000. Both of his former spouses took out restraining orders against him after their marriage ended. One accuser told police in July 2010 that Rossi lured her to his apartment under the guise that she'd be visiting his art studio. Instead, she told the cops he took away her phone and pressed her for sex. When she refused his advances, he told her if she left, he would kill himself by stabbing himself in the chest with a knife, the outlet reported. He was then taken to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation, thank God. Police returned to his apartment that November on a tip and said they encountered an extremely upset woman with injuries to both eyes. The woman told the cops that Rossi snapped after their dinner guest's baby began crying earlier that night and claimed they later got into an argument which turned violent. Rossi grabbed her and knocked her to the ground and held her down and slapped her on the facial area, the outlet reported. Utah County Sheriff's Office in Provo began the hunt for Rossi in 2020 after texting old sexual assault kits. As much as this man comes off as a cartoon character with the really pathetic ways of running away from the law, I really do hope that this is prioritized in some way, because there is a pattern here. Even if there were just one victim, it's still serious, but I find that since there are multiple victims here, I tend to think that it could have happened again. It may still be happening. There are a lot of questions I have there, and it's also just a general danger for him to be out and about when this seems to be kind of how he's been living for a while, and the fact that he's been getting away with it also scares me, because he obviously thinks that he's above the law to a certain degree, enough that he can just continue acting the way he's been acting. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.